I'm not bad, mate.
Yeah,
I'm not bad.
Lockdown?
Nice.
How's lockdown?
It's going well.
Yeah,
It's going well.
Keep
I've had
busy?
lots of
Keeping yourself busy?
Well, for the most part, I've lots of lie-ins, catching up on some sleep, which has been nice.
Yeah.
Tried to do a bit of a run, didn't really go very well, so I stopped doing that quite quickly.
Oh, did you not get the like that sofa to 5K app thing?
No, absolutely not. I got nominated for one of those 5K run things, and I went, go on then, why not?
One
and
of
then
the
I
classic
realised
things that's been going around on social media.
Yeah, and I was sort of like, let's give it a shot. Let's try something. And that went well for about 2 minutes, and then I stopped pretty quickly. Actually, give myself some credit. I did get 3.5K out of it, but
how much of that was actually ran?
Probably about 2.5K, but
that's not too bad. No, that's not too bad. We're not athletes. I don't think we ever confess to be athletes. Yeah.
So should we start? Well, let's say who we are. Probably a good way to open up. So go on, you kick off, mate. Who are you?
Hello, audience out there and listeners. It's a new word for us. I have to refer to our audience as listeners as well now, potentially. So hi, my name's Luke. I am just actually finished my undergrad degree in theatre and film at the University of Reading, specialising in theatre and have a keen interest in theatrical directing. So yeah, that's me. And we'll go into a little bit more about that later on in a future episode or whatever. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah. Give a bit more breadth when we do it, a bit more detail.
Yeah, exactly. A bit more elaborate.
So yeah, but give it more detail, a bit more nitty gritty. Yeah. So I'm Tom. I also just graduated. Well, finished my degree. I haven't graduated yet, but finished my degree.
Weird period where you haven't yet.
Yeah. And it's going to be a long one for us.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long one, but it's
Tell me about it.
But yeah, same degree, so film and theatre as well. And I did a specialism in theatre also, with a keen interest in playwriting and sort of utilising technology. Probably a smart way to put it. But yeah, so we've both got very similar education in theatre. We've both, to be fair, whenever we've been in lectures and seminars together, we've both been keen arguers against each other,
that's
mostly.
Fair to say. Yeah, to be fair, that is probably right. Anyone that knows us personally will be like, they're usually picking away at the back of the class against each other.
Yeah, ignoring the rest of the structure, just sort of going at each other. But it's never because we overly disagree with each other. No, we just have, I don't know. Actually, maybe it is. Who knows? But we just
know what we like, and we want to kind of argue our points as to why we think that thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally. But there we go.
That's the way to put it politely.
Exactly.
we're enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this podcast is basically us just wanting to have a bit of a natter about theatre, really, and stuff that's either relevant, currently important, or various things that either interest us, have caught our attention, or things that we just want to chat about. Because at the moment we've all got a bit of a hole in our lives where theatre has been sort of gone, not gone, in hibernation. I'm going to say in hibernation. So it's sort of waiting for us to get back, and we're all sort of waiting for that. But in that hiatus, we're all missing it a bit. So yeah, we've started up this to give it a chance to just chat about it, and hopefully, if it's interesting enough, we'll get more and more conversations going as well.
Hopefully so. That's the whole idea. So should we go to the intro? We'll whack in our lovely new piece of jingly music, which is crazy, and then we will start our first episode of the Talking Theatre podcast pilot.
Hello and welcome to the Talking Theatre podcast. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Luke, and in this episode today, it's our pilot episode, and we are simply going to be discussing what we think the effects of the COVID-19 crisis that we're all experiencing at the moment is going to be on the theatre world. So I suppose let's kind of start it up by talking a little bit about what's been going on in the theatre world in the past couple of weeks, and then expand it out to talk a little bit more about our thoughts and where this might be heading. So I thought I'd start, Tom, I found a quote, actually. I've been doing some research for this podcast, and thought I would look at...
Proper preparation.
Exactly. It's important. And I thought a timely thing, actually, would be quite important to talk about, is an article that I found written by the Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden, who wrote in The Guardian over the weekend about how the government are kind of handling this crisis within the arts world more specifically. So I'm just going to read you some quotes in what he said and just kind of get your feedback on that. So here we go, some quotes from Oliver Dowden. As someone put it to me recently, sitting and enjoying a performance together is the art, but it is also the business. And as long as social distancing rules remain in place, it makes it very hard to make the numbers stack up. I'm absolutely clear-eyed about the huge challenges that the sector faces and the urgent need for solutions, which is why my department has been working flat out to look at ways to get theatres back up and running again. And he also adds that we've freed up an emergency cash for the Arts Council in England £160 million fund to help individuals and organisations deal with the pandemic's immediate impact. So I just kind of wondered what your overall thoughts was to the way that the government actually are thinking about and handling this situation.
Yeah, it's a weird one, really, isn't it? I really, as a person, I'm a very optimistic yet realistic person. I think a lot of people would describe me as an optimistic pessimist, which is a really weird way to go. But in terms of what the government are doing about all this, I really want to believe that they're doing what's best and everything will come full circle and everything will be okay. We'll get enough money, we'll be funded, and everything will be working brilliantly by the end of all this. There's a little bit of doubt. There's a little big bit of doubt in there. And I do appreciate that while the people in the government who are sort of the art secretaries and all these people, they are passionate about it to some degree, whether they are in the arts or not, because obviously it's slightly different, but they are to some degree passionate about what they're fighting for, like an MP would for their constituency. I really want to believe that they will push for it. But I feel like at the moment there's a lot more drive for, to be honest, granted, more important things like the NHS and things like that. That needs more focus. Things really need to focus on there. But I don't know. I think I really want to hope that they will realise that if they lose the arts, that it's not going to go well for anyone. Because I saw somewhere else as well that they said if there isn't such a massive bailout of all these arts companies and things, then this whole industry will suddenly shrink. And Britain itself has such a massive impact in the world's art world. So it's predominantly film and theatre, film and TV, but theatre as well. Sort of the output that we give is such a high quality that people come to the UK to film and make things. Of course
they do.
But yeah, because we've got all the studios and we've got the creative talent, all the roles that need filling. And if you take that away, people won't be able to have that as a career, and then the industry will shrink down to tiny versions of what it used to be. And then all of a sudden, the revenue coming in will be so small. But the government don't ever seem to notice that to the same extent. But they'll only notice it when it's done, and then they'll pump money into it to build it up again. But by that point, it's too late. You've lost all the skilled workers.
Yeah, of course you have.
So I'm really hoping they notice that. But yeah, it's a weird one.
So do you think this £160 million is anywhere near enough? Is that really going to help? Or is it just a kind of, there's some money.
My concept of money is absolutely screwed, I must admit. But if you think about how many theatres there are, what was the price mark you just said? 160 million?
£160 million. Is what has been.
I mean, there's definitely like 160 theatres in the UK. So if all of them equally get $1 million, that's probably not enough. But then again, obviously, it's not going to be split equally. So all the local theatres will get sort of like £3 or something like that. Obviously, exaggeration, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like enough. But again, it could be split in different areas. London will obviously get most of the money.
Yeah.
So places like Birmingham and Manchester might as well, to be fair. You've got to hope that the big cities will also get stuff, but London will get predominantly most of it, I reckon. And that'll get pumped straight into the West End. And as someone who, the sort of theatre I like to watch and stuff is more Fringe and small venues and things, I find that more interesting. I don't know if it's, they're not going to get much, and it's a sad reality. But then that leads into what theatre comes next. But it's where the money goes is what will happen in the years to come.
Well, did you hear about
how much money it is or not?
Yeah, did you hear the figure that Rufus Norris, the artistic director at the National Theatre, said their annual turnover usually was?
No.
Have a guess.
Annual turnover for the National Theatre?
Yeah, the kind of figure that they're kind of working with, I suppose.
I feel like it's going to be extortionately high or extortionately low, and I can't go on. What is it? What is it?
So they're saying that the Arts Council have found 160 million pounds. The National Theatre's apparently annual turnover is reported to be in excess of 100 million pounds. So if we're already talking about how, you're saying a lot of that money will probably go to the likes of London, Birmingham, Manchester, we've got this massive organisation that are annually doing turnover in excess of 100 million pounds. Really starts to put that other figure into some real perspective, in the sense of, your local theatre, how much of this are they going to be able to get? And the answer is probably not that much.
Oh boy.
I also had a few more things in which Rufus Norris himself actually said. This was back in the end of April, really, in an article.
Very start then.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, with so he talks about how the biggest worry for him was survival. He knew at that point I think it's important to stress that, as I say, this was first reported on the 23rd of April. So whether or not this is the current situation, we cannot say, but this is kind of where the world was at that point, is that he said that he knew of several theatres that have days, not weeks. If the furlough scheme doesn't continue, which we know is existing at least until October, with some changes coming in from the government in the July period.
But does that count for all freelance workers and stuff as well, or is it just? Well,
here's the real problem, because he said that the theatre, the National, had already furloughed 85 to 90% of its workforce, and that figure was still evolving. And that there were months of reserves of funds remaining in the theatre's coffers, and he added that they're trying to make it stretch out to the year. But when we have run out of reserve, then what's next is called insolvency. But he did also say that he thinks there'll be a surge of creativity. Now, that figure also needs to put into perspective in the sense of that 85 to 90%, because I presume that is people who are technically employed or contracted to the National Theatre. That isn't people who are coming in per show as ultimately freelancers to do work. Whereas the problem with freelancers is the sense that they themselves have to claim the individual working from, individual self-employed scheme that the government have put out there. But obviously a lot of these people, they don't have a yearly figure, because their wage in between each month fluctuates so much because of the industry that they work in. So it's very hard to actually put a figure on the amount of people that this is actually affecting in the theatre industry. It's all right, Rufus Norris saying that, 80 to 90% of their workforce or whatever are currently on furlough. That doesn't actually take into account the amount of people that at the time of lockdown were actually working at the National. That was, so it's very difficult to say how this furlough scheme is actually working in relation to the theatres themselves, but also the people that are more predominantly always in and around a few of these different venues. I think that's a really important thing to stress, that nobody really knows how that's going to work.
the way it's been handled is it's the only way they know how to be fair. When I say that, I mean like the government, not just people in general, but
exactly.
like the concept of freelance and stuff, because obviously when you get actors in and stuff, they come in for the job, unless they're sort of like resident actors and they're used again. But even then, they're not used. I don't believe they're used on contracts, or it's not like, for example, like the Marvel movies or something like that, where you have like a five picture contract where you've got 5 films with set. So it's not. I don't think it's like that. At least not for the most part. Especially not in sort of the smaller theatres, low regional theatres and stuff like that. But it's the whole freelance stuff is difficult to pin down, because it's technically as if you're self-employed, and you do have to find an average revenue, but it gets difficult. But the way the grants work is it's sort of you can get up to $2,500 a month or something along those lines. It's I don't know. It sounds good. It sounds good on the surface, but when you get into the nitty gritty of it, it starts getting a bit more complicated. And also, people don't want to be furloughed. People don't want to be given this grant. They want to be doing the things that they enjoy doing. They want to be working. They want to be doing stuff that they're passionate about. And that's something actually that I have noticed, just moving slightly away from the money side and everything. The amount of drive and passion that I have witnessed from people that I know, so students, friends of mine that have just sort of been to drama school and that trying to act and move on and stuff like that. And then obviously celebrities, theatre companies and everything, they've all got this really amazing mindset of keeping it alive and keeping things pushing forward. Like one of my favorite is Patrick Stewart's Sonnet a Day. Like he's just sat there and he's just gone, right, sod this, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm gonna read a sonnet. This is what I do best. Like let's demonstrate that we're still here and still breathing. So the community spirit behind everything that's come together now is really quite inspiring. It's something that's it's made me proud to be someone who like wants to go into all this. I'm like, bring it on. You see all this horrible, dark and dirty like world that we're all living in, the coronavirus, and no one's really caring, and there's a lot of compassion in this area, and it's really nice. Really, really heartlifting to see, even though everything I've read has been predominantly negative. Everything I've read about the future of theatre, film and TV as well, radio, all this stuff is like, oh, it's dead, it's dying, it's going to struggle, it needs money, it needs all. But every time I've read something, there's always been a twinge of positivity and like people going, yeah, this sucks, but we've been in the bad situation before, and from it comes these beautiful art forms that will last forever. So I think while it is a time for everyone to be stuck at home, and someone cooped up, it's not possibly the best thing to be, but it does allow for imagination to creep into how the world works now, especially this world, the arts world. But,
so I suppose off the back of that, then I suppose we should kind of talk about what type of theatre we think is probably going to come back. And I think we should stress at this point to our viewers and our listeners that me and Tom have been kind of having a few brief conversations about this, but we haven't properly delved into what we personally believe. And we also need to stress that what we are about to talk about are only our opinions. They are not, nothing is set in stone. And it's a great point to also reach out to you guys as well, because what we want to do with this podcast is make it collaborative. We want to interact with you guys and understand what you guys think. So, we're just kind of starting a discourse. And that's, I think, a point of our podcast is we kind of take a topic each kind of week and we want to really be informed by what you guys think. And we'll come back to that towards the end of the podcast as to how you guys can do that. Yeah. So, Tom, I suppose we'll start with you. Like, what kind of things do you think, once lockdown is over and things start returning to normal, whenever that may be, what kind of theatre will actually return?
It's a weird one, because it's what will return, what I think will return, and what I want to return. There's three different separate sections. There's the hope, and then there's the reality, and I really want there to be a surge in creativity and a surge in theatre, and a whole new world opens up and everything. But there's a photo that you showed me, Luke, which was I
Yeah,
think it's a Berlin theatre,
I
of
think
all
so.
the seats spread out, and it just looks. I mean, it's a fantastic solution. You can't fault the idea behind it, except you can,
Yeah.
because the amount of seats in there, the prices will skyrocket. It's not what theatre's about. Like as someone who's as someone who's acted as for basically most of my life, getting on stage and seeing a half like there's no problem acting in front of a small audience. Small audiences
Yeah,
are fantastic. It's a lot more intimate. It's a lot more. You get a lot better reactions a lot of the time out of it.
of course you do.
But when it's a big theatre, like a West End theatre, for example, and you take out 80% of the seats, what you're seeing in front of you is so heartbreaking, and it will
Yeah.
be a detriment to the arts, I think. And if it follows that, it's going to be dangerous, purely because of the pricing. The people that will go to see the theatre will suddenly become, I mean, what they already are, but like sort of the rich elite will go, and it's not fair. It's not the way it should be. It's partially why I'm a lot more sort of the stuff I write specifically is a lot more fringe centric. I feel it's more accessible way people can get into it a bit more. It's
Mhm.
not as long. It's cheaper. I think it's more fun as well. Like
Mhm.
I love going to see the big West End shows, but it's fringe venue. And what I'm really hoping, sorry, going back to the question, what I'm really hoping after lockdown happens is that the surge in the weird theatre
Mhm.
comes, like sort of the really postmodernist stuff, but not okay, not quite that bad, like not quite that out there and like
Yeah.
inaccessible in terms of like what is going on here. But some sort of blend between sort of forced entertainment's work
Yeah.
and trying to think of just a really like average, like national theatre sort of, but on a smaller scale. It's like
Yeah.
bog standard theatre, what you'd expect to see if you went, oh, go see some theatre. Um, and sort of this weird blend of taking things that are familiar and really exploding them into something that's weird and new and different. And you're going, oh, that's not what I expected. But then making it familiar enough that it comes in, because obviously the big problem is going to be money.
Yeah.
There's going to be not enough money to go around, and you need to get the money in to keep alive and keep going. And as much as we don't want to admit that theatre is a business, it is a business, and you've
Of
got
course
to
it
run
is.
it like a business, because
Yeah.
that's the world we live in.
Of course it is.
So you've got to get money out of it, and it's a weird one, but that is
But
what I'm hoping. This weird surge in new creative and new writing as well. A bit
yeah.
selfishly as a writer myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like or wanting to be a writer anyway. A new surge in new writing of stuff that is familiar, but like a new spin on it, or like new something creatively different that people can
Yeah.
like really sink their teeth into.
So you're kind of
Um,
probably talking about then a kind of post dramatic era, that kind of thing. This kind
yeah,
of new age 20s kind of development on maybe
yeah,
pretty much 20 to 30 years ago. Um, I
yeah,
know, we kind of talk about this post-dramatic era being the kind of 1990s up until,
yeah,
mid 2000s or whatever. And I think that there probably was a little bit of a shift again between mid 2000s
yeah.
and the end of the last decade, actually. But you're kind of talking about that very much from a fringe point of view. But do you think that that fringe point of
Yeah.
view will also translate into the bigger theatres in which undoubtedly we've
No.
got to kind of talk about?
Unfortunately, no. I think the big theatres will go a completely different route. I think they'll money because they have to. And I cannot. It's come to a point where you can't blame them for needing to do this. You need to do to stay alive.
Of
And
course.
if you need to do things that work, then do the things that work. If
Yeah,
I was in that situation, I'd do the same thing. I
of
work to
course you
keep
would.
the theatre alive, keep the jobs, keep actors coming in, keep directors and all these creative people working is what I'd want to do, obviously. And in a time of crisis like this, you've got to focus on the big picture, which is like the people that are working in the industry need to be kept
Yeah,
in the industry. So you got to satisfy them at some point. You had quite an interesting theory that you briefly said to me that I want to hear more about in terms
yeah,
of the classics.
yeah.
Um, Please go ahead.
So something that me and Tom have been talking about, and as I said, we kind of had a brief discussion about this a few days ago. But I think it's probably about time I elaborate on my kind of thoughts here. So something I think is going to be quite predominant in, especially, I think it's important to call this London-centric theatre in terms of my theory, and predominantly being quite a split between the West End and that of your big other London venues, whether that be the Royal Court, the National Theatre, the Almeida, the Donmar Warehouse, the Old Vic, the Young Vic, these kind of venues that are massive institutions. But I also think that there's going to be quite a divide between the two. And the reason I think that is because I think over the past 20, 30 years, even longer than that, you know, just look at the makeup of the West End musical scene right now. Think of those musicals, you like The Lion King, Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, all of these, let's be honest, mega musicals that have been running for near on 30 years, that the actual cost of them to put on each night in terms of the outgoings in relation to what they bring in from the audience is actually negative. When you go over the street and you've got all these massive, massive theatre-based shops with your Les Mis t-shirts, you can go and get your little Simba from the Disney store and whatever, makes them such profitable industries that although they might not be making money from the audiences per se, they're making money on the marketability, and the profitability of their business comes from what it means to wear a Les Miserables t-shirt, or to go out and say, well, I've seen Les Mis, I've seen Wicked 20 times, I've got all the t-shirts, I've got all the programs, I've got all the memorabilia. That makes these businesses profitable. And I think there are go on.
I was just going to say, but if you then compare that to the new writing scene and sort of bringing a new play out, you don't want a t-shirt from a play that you've seen once that's only just started and may tour. Who knows? Yeah. Probably won't. They may write another play afterwards, which then goes on to tour, but this might be a debut play. So you don't want that. So then when it comes to theatres choosing which plays to put on, there you go. That's what will decide it up. Sorry, carry on. I just wanted to say,
Yeah, it's fine. And so I do think that a lot of these London West End venues that might predominantly more play venues might start to adapt the musical theatre model, because whether we like it or not, predominantly musical theatre audiences come from all over the country, and they're not necessarily people that are just interested in theatre. I know from my own experience, take my dad, for example, not interested in what I classify as theatre at all. But if you say Michael Jackson Thriller is playing in the West End, he wants to go and see something like that. When Motown, for example, was in there, my dad was like, yes, go and see Motown. It's not because of what it is, it's because of what it says it is on the tin. It's like, take a thing of baked beans, for example. If it says, and I know this to our audience might sound a bit crazy, and I'm going somewhat off topic, but take your Heinz baked beans and take your Tesco, other brands are available, 29 pence baked beans. Inside, they're both baked beans, whereas, you know, they're both pieces of theatre. But if you strip that back from the outside, what do you see? You see quite a clear divide in the sense of, I'm going to go for something that I know is reputable, has been there, done that, been around for ages. That's what I'm going to spend my money on. Yes, it might be a little bit more money to pay £1 for your tin of beans than 29 pence. But what I'm going to get is tried, tested, and I'm going to enjoy the beans. I'm going to enjoy this piece of theatre. If it means I sit in the theatre for 2.5 hours, I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not going to mind about spending £100 on my ticket. Whereas I can go and get the cheaper beans for 29 pence, the cheap piece of theatre, maybe 15, 30 pounds kind of thing. A bit of a toss-up, you know, some people might love it, some people might hate it. But as a business model, the Heinz baked beans have been around for ages. And I think that is a theory which I think I can see predominantly those West End theatres.
I think it's a risky one to head down that road if everyone does. But I think there's market for both. I think a lot of people will want the big musicals and stuff because a lot of people are really sad. Like I think, this is really testing my knowledge here. I'm not much of a musical theatre goer, but I think stuff like Waitress and stuff like that have had to shut early,
Yeah,
and are now cancelling their run
yeah,
because of the COVID-19, and people won't then get to see it. It's sort of these big musicals that people want when they come back will be a lot more like, yeah, but all these. Say there was like a Mike Bartlett on in a smaller theatre in London. People will probably be rushing to it, but it won't be to the same extent and numbers.
yeah,
But a theatre that specialises in like new writing or contemporary drama, if they start going towards musicals, I think it might become a dangerous game to play. Also, they don't have the physical capacity to do so. These small theatres don't have the sizes of theatre they need. I mean, it won't stop them; they'll try. But if they then bring in social distancing into theatres, these small theatres won't work. But yeah, these mega musicals, I think you've got a point. They will come back with a vengeance, and I reckon ticket prices will go up as well.
Of course they will. But I think to caveat that as well, that these other big London venues that I've kind of discussed will either have to take that model or kind of one of each, really. But I also think that they'll either say, let's put on a few musicals ourselves, let's get in that game. We've got the space within the actual size of the theatre to be able to dance on the stage, to sing and to socially distance with our incredibly elaborate sets, because that's also another massive thing from this mega musicals. They all have sets which are almost instantaneously recognizable, which I think that's so important to stress. But as you were saying,
big wicked map and everything.
exactly. But as we kind of introduced when we kind of spoken about this before, I think the other route is down this classical route of classical plays.
Yeah.
And what
I was about to push you towards that now.
Yeah. What I think about that is that you will probably see a re-envisaging of, let's say, Hamlet, one of the most famous plays, probably the most famous play ever written, been done thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Who needs to see another Hamlet, realistically?
Not for a while.
Not for a while. But we know that there'll be people out there that if you get a big name actor in to play Hamlet, you get a big name director in, you get a nice sized venue, maybe the Olivier stage, for example, something like that, people will flock to go and see Hamlet. Because it's Hamlet. B, they haven't been around that social culture. And a lot of this audience is about social culture. I think it's important to stress that, and we can't gloss over that fact. And I also think people were like, yes, I know we've probably seen that 5 different versions of this in the past 3 years, but we've just got to get out of the house. So as soon as...
it will reach that.
So, if the National say, right, we're coming back with a bang, we're doing Hamlet, we're reviving a production that's been probably done before. I know you saw the Andrew Scott version, for example. I saw the Benedict Cumberbatch one a few years ago. Say they bring back one of them. They say we can only have 20% of a full audience of the Olivier, but there'll be £300 a seat per person. You can guarantee that within the first hour or so, the majority of that run will probably be sold out. And that is something that, unfortunately, the National, and I'm not specifically going in on them. It's not that at all. I'm using them as the example. They are the National Theatre at the end of the day.
They're a big theatre that is more likely to need to keep going. So they're a fair theatre to choose. But what I really hope from this revival of classics, and sort of as a lover of Chekhov yourself, obviously, if they start doing more Chekhov, it's not a bad thing. Same with myself. If they start doing more Pinter and stuff like that, it's not a bad thing. But if they do the stuff that's been done a million times before, which is the proven formula, that's what people want to see, is the stuff they know. So if they do the Hamlets, the Macbeth, the Cherry Orchards, the Seagulls, they'll do the same ones over and over again. However, what I'd really like to see, and this is purely a wish, a pipe dream, if they did the back catalogues, like I've only seen one production of Love Labour's Lost at the RSC. I think it was 2014, 13, something like that. It was a while ago, but I've never even seen it advertised anywhere else, apart from like little theatres and stuff. I want these big places to do it, sort of something new, something different. But also like Chekhov's short plays. Yeah. I'm a self-professed not lover of Chekhov. I'm not a huge fan of his long plays. I appreciate them. I do appreciate it. We've been through this conversation a million times. Yeah. I appreciate them. But his short plays, I think, are spectacular. And if they were put on as sort of triple bills or something like that at these big theatres, it'd be amazing. The Harold Pinter Theatre did this perfectly when they did the 10-year anniversary of Pinter's death, and they did his shorts, and they did it all in little sort of, I can't remember how long they were on for, like a month each or something. Yeah. They sort of went through all his short
like
plays,
and they were each thing.
Yeah, and they had stars in them, and it was, I think they must have generated a lot of money for it, because the sets were spectacular, but they weren't overly complicated.
They weren't elaborate.
It would have taken a lot of, they weren't elaborate. They used to revolve a lot of the time, which obviously would be pricey and so on, but the way they were made was incredibly effective. But in terms of, if you compared that set to like, I mean, I haven't seen it, but the Cursed Child set, sort of, for example, I can imagine the difference in pricing is insane. But if you do stuff like that, the stuff that people don't particularly like, people who know it really well. Like, I know the Pinter plays quite well, so I can watch them and be like, yeah, great. But people who don't know them will go along and be like, oh, so it's written by the guy who did all those big ones, so it's probably quite good, right? So let's check that out. Or the lesser Shakespeare plays, like the ones that aren't done as much, that stuff that people go, oh, it's Shakespeare. Wait, I don't know that one. Oh, it's written by Shakespeare. It's probably going to be quite good. It's got this person acting in it. I think that would be a more positive way to go for it. But again, I don't think people will do that. I think they'll go with the classics. They'll do Romeo and Juliet again. They'll do Hamlet. I think Romeo and Juliet specifically will be done a lot because of the separation and everything in this whole COVID state. Which would be fine, but I'm bored with it. I want something new, you know? Yeah.
I mean, something that me and you spoke about as well was this idea of adaptation. But I think of Chekhov and I think of Shakespeare. Think how many sonnets Shakespeare wrote. Think how many short stories Chekhov wrote. Can artists do something with that and create something from that? Because we have to remember that if your classic white middle class, predominantly male audience at a lot of these big venues. And let's not blossom around the fact, such as myself and Tom, a lot of the time, and we're going to put it out there from the get-go, that is, the kind of background we come from. But at the same time, we also know that if you said we're going to do something by Shakespeare or by Chekhov, they're still going to want to go. But if it's Chekhov's short stories that's become a play, that's become adapted in some way, or there's a bunch of Shakespeare's sonnets that have been redefined and put into this new era, people will still go. But hopefully, you might also be able to get some new people through the door by thinking, that's really quite cool. But then it all comes back to that killer question of cost. And I think that's so important to say. And something I spoke about with Tom a few days ago was this idea of basically having even more binary audiences between Tom's another Fringe theatre, and I'm going to confess, I do go to a lot of these more established venues to go and take in things. I know, it's terrible to be saying.
Scandal!
Although probably won't come as a surprise. Although what I also think is important to say is I am very good, and if especially for our younger listeners out there as well, our audience, get yourself on a lot of these young people schemes that these places have. The Royal Court do one. The National do one. They do £15 tickets. There are articles and things out there as to where you can get these tickets. So please go out there, have a look after this as to where you can get signed up. You get notified pretty much as soon as something comes through. Yes, they aren't as effective as they should be, and I'm sure this is something we in fact will come back to at a later date in a later podcast. But honestly, get involved with that. It's a lot of the way that I've been able to see a lot of things that primarily I wouldn't have been able to have gone and seen. At the end of the day, if I can get 4 individual shows for £15 a ticket, that's the same price as a lot of these middle of the road tickets for one production. Although I know it's not ideal, it's a starting point, and I'm sure we will come back to that in a later episode.
Yeah.
But I do think that there will be this divide of the really cool, wacky, interesting, pretty much as a result of COVID, work that comes out because people have got time and they've got space to develop these new types of work. And I think that's really important. But I also think there will be this straight, narrow path of let's do Hamlet, let's get in the classic audience who know how much they want to be back at our venues, and let's sell it out. And I think that is a real shame.
Well, yeah, it's a shame, but I think what we're hoping for is the best of both worlds. If we get new wacky world, that'd be amazing. If we get interesting classics that haven't been done for a while, that'd be great. And what we're going to hope for is hope for the best. But yeah, I think that's plenty of time discussing that.
I think
lots of hope.
Yeah, and I think the kind of rounding thing to say is that theatre simply just needs to survive, like we all do in these next what will be pretty turbulent times for everyone. Make no mistake of that. And obviously, it's not ideal, but unfortunately, it comes down to survival. And we just want there to be a theatre at the end of all this. Once things are getting back to a sense of normality, to use the word, can it just survive in some form? Because it will come back. It will have to come back. The numbers will speak for themselves in terms of the people involved with this world, the people who love this world, and just more generally what this theatre in particular, and film and television as well, means to this country, not only in their economy, but also in the social and the more political well-being of the people that are so intrigued by this world. It will survive. And I think, as you say, there is a lesson of hope that you've kind of been reading, and so have I. So I think what I want to kind of end up for myself is this idea that we have to put out in this situation of theatre will survive, folks. We don't know how. This has simply been our opinion, but it will survive in some form.
It will. It will do. Okay, fantastic. So that was the pilot. I think that went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I think
so the rest of the... Yeah, I think we discussed some good stuff. The rest of the podcast then is just going to be basically chatting about theatre and any other specific questions that come up or things that interest us, areas we want to explore. But if anyone who's listening or watching or sort of just taking part, cooking while listening to this or doing whatever, feel free to let us know. If you either know us personally, just text us, or email us on the talkingtheatre@gmail.com.
It is the Talking Theatre Podcast at gmail.com, or alternatively...
I was so close.
We've already got an Instagram account. Can you believe that? Already got an Instagram account, and that is @Talking Theatre. So send us something on there, and obviously we'll get back to you as well. And hopefully we'll be able to read out some feedback and some kind of thoughts from you guys this time next week, actually, which would be really good.
Yeah, we like to keep things like we have quite a serious chat today, sort of about what we think and what we hope. But I think in terms of the whole concept in general, if we can get other people on to chat with us, sort of guests, people we know, people who want to sort of say what they want to say, stuff like that, feel free to let us know. It's all just a bit of fun. We're here just to chat through theatre.
Of course we are.
Yeah, we're not taking this overly seriously. We're just having a bit of fun and keeping our love of theatre alive. So feel free to message in. But other than that, hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Yeah, we'll link everything down below.
Yep.
I've never done YouTube before. This is weird for me. This is
down below.
So
in the description.
But yeah, let us know, and we'll look forward to hearing from you guys. But until next time, adios.
See you next week. Bye bye.